for inviting me here. And I just want to give a round of applause to this young brother here for stepping up to the plate and doing the right thing. I was really scheduled to be at a hearing downtown today, of the Department of Health hearing that was pertaining to a major project in my district, until I did get the call about today. But I thought it was more important that I be here to give you my view of Stop and Frisk, and I did put that off and have someone else attend because I wanted to be with you today. So, thanks to be able to come in. But just to get into the point of the Stop and Frisk, as Mr. Quash mentioned, there's a lot of things and videos of me being in the forefront of these struggles and fights with Stop and Frisk. But then there's a disturbing YouTube video that some people are trying to divide us when we come to the forefront of getting close to success. Before I became a state legislator, which I represent the South Bronx, I've been stopped and frisked many of times from coming from the gym in the night, still sweating, coming out the gym and being asked, can I have your ID and where do you live? And I like this young brother mentioned, I get infumed and was so enraged that they asking me something, and I know where the thought was stemming from. It was from racism and from stereotyping. So I actually just rebelled and refused because I didn't do anything wrong. I was actually in front of my house, which the officer didn't even realize. I was just reaching home. So at the time when he asked for my ID, and I said, I don't have any ID. I live here. So he says, where do you live? And I asked him the reason why. Why are you asking me where do I live and where am I coming from? I'm an adult. Did I commit a crime? Did I do something wrong? Like you said, present the facts as to the intrusion of why you asking me these questions. Was there a crime committed with someone with my description or what? So bottom line, he found out I lived where I lived, because then I started asking questions to have his badge number, because I was really willing to take it to that extent of fighting this officer for stereotyping me the way he did. But we was able to get it resolved. We talked it out, and he apologized at the end because of the approach that I dealt with him in. See, if I was reacted in the way I really wanted to by telling him what I wanted to tell him, because I didn't, then it would have been a different story. But like he said, I know about the central booking situation and all of that, which was unnecessary, because we put ourselves in these positions sometimes by the things we say from our mouth. So just talking about that, I've produced a pamphlet that's legally written that says what to do if you're stopped by the police. Tips that may save you from a night in jail and can even save your life. It's here for everyone to get a copy of. I pass it out to every young man in the public schools of my community and district. And usually with political mail and things come from politicians, people throw them in the garbage because they're tired of status quo sayings and political mails. And I agree, because that's why I don't do it. But I'm giving valuable information that can save their lives. And I saw young men, after reading the topic of the brochure, actually took it, folded it in their pocket, and some even folded it up in a trifold and put it in their wallets. So I know it meant that much to them. So take a copy home with you today, and you feel free to duplicate it and distribute it. But as the brother here mentioned about in my district with the young boy, 4-year-old boy, Lord Morgans, that was shot and killed in a gun battle in my district. I was in Harlem that night when it happened, and I got the call that night when it happened, and I left and I went directly to the scene when it happened. And I was there. I've been an advocate for Stop and Frisk from day one, because before I was a legislator, and I knew of the injustice and unfairness of this, after I became a legislator, what would it look like me being a victim of Stop and Frisk, now being in a position to do something about it, to waive it the other way? It doesn't mathematically add up and sound correct. But yet you have those out there who's trying to create the division. So at the scene of the young man that was shot and killed, unfortunately, the young boy rather, which we was able to finally raise the money to actually bury him from business people. A reporter came to me because he knew, and if you get my brochure handout here, I'm the introducer, the sponsor of the bill in the New York State Assembly to do away with illegal stop and frisk in our state government. This is what's untold. I'm the sponsor of the bill. And you'll see a photo of the rallies that came out that was up in Albany where legislators in the conference would not come out to speak to the stop and frisk or about it because the reporters were there in Albany. Here I am. I stood out and said it was almost a conspiracy or an attack on Black and Latinos in New York State. Doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure it out. The mayor admitted it. The crimes and the guns that's discovered in New York City, majority does not come from stop and frisk. So back to the situation with the little boy in my district, the reporter came to me because he saw me upset, looking at this little boy being carried away from being shot and killed. Who wouldn't be seeing a little boy 4 years old shot and being removed on a stretcher in your district over senseless gun violence? I was very upset that day. So the reporter tried to take the opportunity to ask me, what do you think about stop and frisk now? But I knew it was a trick question. But I gave him the right answer. And my answer exactly was, if you could prove to me that stop and frisk would have prevented this 4-year-old boy from being killed, then I would reconsider my stand on stop and frisk. I said, if you could prove it to me, that it would have prevented the killing of this boy, then I would reconsider my position on stop and frisk. And in the media the next day, another legislator changes his stand on stop and frisk. That's what the media does. They try to create controversy and write stories. But yet my record shows the total opposite. I've been on the forefront to me that it would have prevented the killing of this boy, then I would reconsider my position on stop and frisk. And in the media the next day, another legislator changes his stand on stop and frisk. That's what the media does. They try to create controversy and write stories. But yet my record shows the total opposite. I've been on the forefront in every fight of police brutality. Jatik Reed, the young man who was handcuffed in my district and beaten like Rodney King in California, with his handcuffs on his face, getting kicked in his head and beat with nightsticks by 6 police officers on video. So that's another good point about having our videos. So there's no wavering when it comes to me as a South Bronx resident. As a young man and African American of the South Bronx, I know what is the life of the average person of New York City in our communities, especially for all the young that's here. The message is designed for them because they're going to be faced with coming out in the night or coming home from a basketball game or for training or whatever it is they do in the evenings and coming home, and they're being harassed. So we as adults who seem to have a little bit more knowledge could deal with these situations. But our young men who don't know how to answer certain questions, who's being harassed and beat by the police, I have to stop my car in my district many a time to stop the police from harassing them when it's unfair. I was going home from my office many a nights when I saw the police have people pushed up against gates in front of their own buildings, and I would stop, and they would notice my presence and ask me, what are you and who are you? And I would state who I am, and then I would see them whisper into the sergeant's ear, and the next thing you know, they played it off and say, okay guys, we don't want loitering, have a good night. But if I did not stop to do that, I know and you know, there would have been some charges put on some more young black males that night. And the thing about the stop and frisk when it comes to touching a person's body, some people get offended because the police aggressively touch you and frisk you and grab you. So naturally, some young men respond with pushing their arm off of them. And what do you get then? Now you get a charge for assaulting a police officer. Even if you didn't have weapons on you or anything on you or did wrong, now you created a crime because now he has something to use against you and he charges you with assaulting a police officer. So I'm just going to say, I also introduced a new bill that's pending right now. 3 weeks ago, the Amsterdam News published it. It's my reform, a 5-point reform on the stop and frisk policies. Stop and frisk policies is a legal policy on the book, but what we're talking about is the illegal stop and frisk. Stop and frisk related to probable cause is not what we're talking about. If we see a young man walking down the street with a handle of a gun sticking out his waist, then I give them probable cause. But we're not talking about probable cause. We're talking about illegal stop and frisk, stopping us because our skin color, because the way we look. But we're not going to continue to support this. We're going to keep on fighting until this is removed off the books. But my position is clear. And I send it out to every mayoral candidate of New York City. If you come to the South Bronx, if you come for my endorsement, if you don't have a clear platform laid out on how you're going to get rid of this illegal stop and frisk with NYPD, you will not get the votes and support of my district. And I stand by that. And everyone who's a resident of New York City should hold our mayoral candidates accountable to this. They can't keep coming, taking our votes for granted, and then go back into office for another 4 years, and then continuously stand by and I don't say nothing while our black males are being destroyed and wrongfully charged. They're creating criminal records on our young males. And then what happens when they're 15 and 16 years old and getting criminal records? So what's that doing? It's interfering with their future of progress, where they can't go get jobs now because they have marks on their records. And some of those stop and frisk end up turning into felonies because they say you tried to beat up a police officer. And now they have a right to go beat you and knuckle you up and justify, well, he attacked me, so we defended ourselves. And we know how that all goes. So I'm just here to say my position on stop and frisk for those who the media might have got into their brains to say that I've been wavering. Naturally, there's no use to go after something that's not live. The dead, they leave alone. But when you live and kicking and you fighting, you're always going to have the attraction of those who try to create the division on you and to turn the minds of the people against you because they know the fire is on them and where it's coming from. In Albany, I've been putting that fire on them for stop and frisk. And I'm going to continue to do that until we get rid of this illegal stop and frisk. And we're going to hold these police officers accountable. We're working on legislation right now where police officers, any of them caught wrongfully doing this illegal stop and frisk, we're looking at other means of being able to prosecute the police for doing these things illegally. It's a form of racism. It's a form of an act of stereotyping, and we're not going to accept it. So moving forward, I'm going to continue this fight against stop and frisk. Don't believe the hype. When they say you want to hear or know something, hear it direct from the horse's mouth. Because I was at a press conference last week for a young man in my district that was wrongfully killed by a police officer in a holdup at a bodega, Mr. Cuevas. I came to the press conference to stand up for that young man and the family. But then somebody invoked some division there and said, we don't want politicians here. We don't want politicians here, because they knew I was coming to try to make it look like I'm wavering here with my community. I don't have to explain to my community where I'm coming from. They elected me because they know where I'm coming from. And I'm looking to be reelected again this year, and because they know I'm a front runner for them, and I'm in the front fighting for my community. And on top of that, the proponents who's coming in the name, some came in the name of Occupy Wall Street and Occupy the Bronx, people who don't even live in the Bronx. I didn't even see one African American in their group. And they were coming about, oh, you're wavering on stop and frisk. Why is that? Because you know my record that we get in progress and about to eliminate the stop and frisk, so they want to try to stop me? It's beyond me. And they're not going to stop it. Because when I go back to Albany, we're taking it to the next degree of fighting. And we're going to hold New York City accountable, and we're going to do it legislatively where they're going to have to remove illegal stop and frisk off the books. We could talk, we could fight, but guess what? They say it's a law, well, we're going to change the law, and we're going to hold them accountable where it's going to be right for all of us. So that's where my position on stop and frisk, direct from the horse to you. I can never waver on it because I am that. I am the victim of that, like this young man. And it happened to me about 15 years ago.